The journey to Rayana had been long, and the silence of space was heavy for Aaron. He had crossed stars and endless darkness, guided only by the hum of the ship and the mission that waited for him. Humans had reached many worlds before, but this one was different. Reports spoke of a proud queen, a strange royal court, and a princess who never spoke a word to outsiders. When his ship broke through the pale clouds of Rayana, Aaron felt wonder rise in him. The planet was beautiful. Rivers glowed with soft blue light, the mountains shone as if carved from crystal, and great towers stood above the forests, reaching toward the sky. The people of Rayana had built a city that seemed alive. Roads curved like flowing water, and the lights of their buildings shifted in colors as if breathing. It was a land where nature and craft walked together. Aaron landed at the edge of the capital, where guards with silver armor stood in rows. Their armor shimmered under the twin suns, and each carried long spears made of some unknown alloy. The guards studied him with unreadable faces. Aaron stepped down, carrying no weapon, only a pack of tools and records from Earth. He wanted no misunderstanding. One of the guards approached. His voice was calm, but there was weight behind his words. "You are the human from the distant world. The Queen has permitted your landing. You will follow us to the palace." Aaron nodded, careful with his movements. He had learned long ago that in new lands, respect was the strongest shield. He walked between the guards as they led him through wide streets lined with tall spires and bridges. The people stopped to stare. Some whispered, some bowed, and some only looked with wary eyes. The palace rose at the heart of the city. It was not made of stone or metal but something that looked like living crystal, its walls glowing faintly in the light. The great doors opened with no sound, and inside stretched a hall of beauty and mystery. Murals covered the walls, showing the long history of the people. In every picture stood a queen, and beside her a young figure with eyes of fire and silence. The queen sat on a throne carved into the crystal itself. She wore a crown shaped like branches of light and her gown shifted like flowing water. Though her face was calm, her eyes were sharp, measuring every detail of the human who now stood before her. "Welcome, Aaron of Earth," the queen said. Her voice was strong yet carried the softness of wisdom. "We have heard much of your people, travelers of the endless dark. You may stay among us, but you must follow our ways. Do you understand?" Aaron bowed his head. "I understand, great queen. I came not to rule, not to judge, but to learn and to share. If my knowledge can aid your people, it is yours." The queen's lips curved slightly, though her eyes did not soften. "We shall see. Many who come to us seek power. Few come with open hearts. Time will reveal which you are." As the queen spoke, Aaron felt another presence in the hall. His eyes turned and there, half hidden behind a curtain of silver cloth, stood a figure. It was the princess. She wore no crown, only a robe of deep green that shimmered like leaves under sunlight. Her eyes were large and bright, yet distant, as though watching from another world. She met Aaron's gaze only for a moment, then turned away. No one introduced her. No one called her name. It was as if she were both present and not present, a shadow within her own home. Aaron felt curiosity rise in him, but he remembered the queen's words and held his silence. In the days that followed, Aaron was given a place within the palace walls. His chamber was simple, yet windows opened toward the glowing river below. Each morning he walked through the city, studying their machines and their ways. The people used energy unlike anything humans had known. It pulsed from crystals that grew from the ground, harnessed into light, healing, and travel. Yet with all their strength, Something was missing. The people lived carefully, almost too carefully. They feared mistakes, they feared new ideas, and they feared change. Aaron saw this when he visited the city's energy station. A device had broken, dimming half the district, yet the engineers hesitated. They argued about rules, about who had the right to touch the machine, while the people waited in darkness. Aaron could not watch. He stepped forward, studied the lines of the machine, and saw the problem. With steady hands, he fixed the connection using only a tool from his pack. The device hummed back to life, and the lights of the district flared once more. The engineers stared at him with wide eyes. Some whispered in surprise, others in quiet shame. Aaron only smiled. Sometimes the answer is simple. You only need to try. That night, the Queen summoned him again. She listened as her advisors described what had happened. When they finished, she looked at Aaron with new eyes. You acted boldly, she said. Here, we do not touch what we do not understand. We fear breaking what cannot be repaired. Yet you moved without hesitation. Why? Aaron met her gaze. Because life does not wait. On Earth, we learn that mistakes are teachers. If we wait forever, nothing grows. Sometimes one must take the risk. The Queen was silent for a moment. Then she nodded. Perhaps your people are as strange as the stars, but there is strength in your words. As she spoke, Aaron once again felt the princess watching. This time she did not hide behind the curtain. She stood in the corner of the hall, her eyes locked on him, searching, measuring. But still, she said nothing. Rumors spread through the palace about the princess. Some said she had sworn an oath of silence. Others claimed she carried knowledge forbidden by tradition. Some even whispered she was cursed, and her voice would bring sorrow. Aaron did not believe such tales, but he felt the weight of her silence. One evening, while walking through the garden of crystal trees, he saw her again. She stood beside the glowing river, her robe flowing in the breeze. Aaron stopped at a respectful distance. The river is beautiful, he said gently. The princess turned her head slightly but gave no answer. Her eyes reflected the light of the water, deep and unreadable. Aaron felt a pull to speak more, but he knew pressing her would break the fragile moment. He bowed lightly and left her in peace. From that night onward, he felt her presence more often. In the council halls, in the gardens, even in the city streets when he worked beside the engineers, she was there, always watching, never speaking. It was as if she wanted to say something but held herself back, bound by chains unseen. Aaron wondered what secret she carried. He wondered why the murals always showed a silent figure beside each queen. He wondered why the people spoke of her only in whispers. And in his heart, he knew the answer was close, waiting to reveal itself when the time was right. For now, the human had taken his first steps into a world of crystal light and guarded hearts. He had earned a place in their eyes, but the mystery of the princess still lingered, silent and powerful. And though the queen welcomed him with words, it was the unspoken gaze of the princess that filled his thoughts as he prepared for the days to come. The sun of Ryan arose with twin light across the crystal towers of the capital. Aaron woke early, as he had every day since his arrival. His chamber was quiet, yet the sound of the glowing river outside reached him like a song. He often stood by the window to watch the city stir to life. Traders opened their stalls, farmers brought carts of crystal fruit, and children carried glowing stones that shined like lanterns. It was a place of wonder, but it was also a place of hesitation. Since the day he had repaired the energy station, People looked at Aaron differently. Some looked with respect, some with fear, and some with quiet curiosity. The news had reached every corner of the city. A human who had touched forbidden machinery and restored light in a matter of minutes. To some, it was a blessing. To others, it was reckless. Aaron was summoned often by the Queen's advisors. They asked questions about human science and tools. He answered with care, sharing enough to show respect but never enough to seem arrogant. He wanted to help, but he also knew trust was fragile here. The Queen herself spoke to him less often. She observed from her throne, measuring his every word. When she did speak, her voice carried both kindness and warning. Aaron knew she was testing him, waiting to see if he was truly different from those who came before. Yet for all his time in the palace, his thoughts often returned to the princess. She was always near, silent as the shadows, yet brighter than any flame. She appeared in the council halls, in the gardens, even in the marketplace when he walked among the people. She never spoke, never smiled, and never drew close. But her eyes followed him, and her silence carried weight. Aaron began to hear more whispers about her. Servants in the halls spoke when they thought no one listened. The princess has never spoken to one beyond her blood. They say her voice could awaken secrets long hidden. She is the heir, yet she is a mystery even to her own people. One evening, Aaron asked a palace guard about her. The guard hesitated before answering. She is the heart of Rayana, but a heart locked away. Do not ask more, human. Even we do not know the truth. The words gave no answer, yet they deepened the mystery. The court and the princess. During a council meeting, Aaron watched the princess more closely. The hall was filled with nobles, each dressed in robes woven with shining threads. They argued about trade, about energy distribution, about ancient laws. Their voices echoed against the crystal walls. The princess sat at the far end, quiet and still. She held no scrolls, carried no staff, and wore no crown. Her robe was simple, yet her presence drew more attention than the queen herself. When she looked at the speakers, they lowered their voices. When she turned away, they dared to raise them again. Aaron wondered why. She did not speak. She gave no orders. Yet her silence seemed more powerful than words. At one moment, her gaze fell on him. He felt a strange chill, not of fear but of something deeper. It was as if she were asking questions without sound, questions he could not yet understand. When the meeting ended, the queen rose and the nobles bowed. The princess left quietly, vanishing into the shadows of the palace. Aaron wanted to follow, but he held himself back. Respect was his path, not haste. A test of trust. Days later, a problem struck again. The energy flowing through the northern district flickered, plunging homes into darkness. Once more, the engineers stood uncertain. They argued about traditions, about the risk of touching sacred machines. The people gathered in fear. Aaron stepped forward. I can help. The engineers frowned. You are not of us. These machines are not yours to touch. The light is for all, Aaron replied. If we wait, more will suffer. Before they could stop him, he examined the crystal engine. Its lines of power pulsed unevenly, like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Aaron adjusted the flow, replacing a shattered link with a tool he carried. Slowly, the engine glowed steady again, and the district filled with light. The people cheered. Children clapped, and traders bowed their heads in thanks. The engineers lowered their eyes, caught between pride and shame. Aaron turned to them calmly. Your machines are strong. But strength is not in silence. It is in action. That night, the queen summoned him again. She sat with her advisors in the great hall, the princess standing behind her as always. You act without fear, the queen said. Our people hesitate because tradition teaches them to. Yet you break those bonds as if they were nothing. Tell me, human, do you not fear mistakes? Aaron bowed slightly. I fear mistakes, great queen. But I fear inaction more. On earth, mistakes are the road to wisdom. Waiting brings only loss. The queen's eyes narrowed, but she gave a small nod. Perhaps your people are bold for good reason. Perhaps that is your strength. As she spoke, Aaron felt the princess's gaze on him again. This time, her eyes were not cold. They seemed curious, almost questioning. It was the first time he thought he saw a hint of light in her silence. A silent encounter later, Aaron walked through the palace gardens. The air smelled of crystal flowers that glowed with soft colors. The paths wound between pools of water where fish with silver scales swam slowly. He saw her there again, standing beside a tree whose branches sparkled like glass. The princess looked out over the garden, her robe moving gently in the breeze. Aaron stopped a short distance away. The garden is peaceful, he said softly. She did not answer. Her eyes remained on the water. He tried again. Your people care for beauty as much as they care for law. That is rare. Still, no answer. But she turned her head slightly, as if acknowledging his words. Aaron did not step closer. He only bowed lightly. One day, I hope to hear your thoughts. Until then, I will respect your silence. He turned to leave, but as he walked away, he felt her eyes remain on him. Whispers of change in the following weeks, Aaron's place in the city grew stronger. People came to him with small problems, machines to repair, questions to ask. He helped when he could, always careful not to boast. The people began to see humans not as reckless wanderers but as allies. Yet within the palace, unease grew. Some nobles whispered that the queen trusted the human too much. Others feared that the princess might one day break her silence with him, and what that would mean for tradition. Aaron felt the tension but did not step back. He knew that change always brought shadows before light. One night, as he returned to his chamber, he found a message carved on a small crystal left at his door. It glowed faintly with words, "The air watches you. Be careful, for silence is not empty." Aaron held the crystal in his hand, feeling its weight. He looked out the window, where the glowing river moved like a path of stars. The princess was a mystery, yet he felt she was also a key. A key to something far greater than himself. He did not yet know her secret. He did not yet know why the queen guarded her so fiercely. But he knew that the days ahead would bring answers, and those answers would shake the city of crystal to its heart. For now, the princess remained silent. But Aaron had begun to understand, her silence was not weakness. It was power, waiting for the moment to be released. And when that moment came, it would change everything. The city of Rayana glowed under the twin suns, but inside the palace walls there was growing unease. For weeks, whispers carried through the halls about the queen's health. She no longer stood as tall in the council chambers, and her voice sometimes trembled when she spoke. The nobles tried to hide their worry, but the servants saw the truth each day. Aaron noticed it too. When he first arrived, the queen's presence had filled the great hall like fire. Now, when she sat on her throne, her shoulders seemed heavier, as though an unseen weight pressed down upon her. Her crown of light appeared brighter than her eyes. The princess was always at her side, silent as ever, her gaze sharp, her face calm. Yet Aaron could sense the fear behind her stillness. She stood like a guardian, watching not only the court but also her mother, ready for something none could name. The illness reveals itself one morning. The queen called a council of nobles, advisors, and guards. The hall filled with voices as they argued about the sickness spreading in the lower districts. Farmers had fallen ill, their skin pale, their energy fading. Crystal healers tried their methods, but nothing worked. The sickness spread quickly, touching more homes each day. The queen raised her hand to silence them. This illness is unlike any we have known. We will send more healers. We will strengthen the barriers around the districts. We will find a cure. Her words were strong, but her body betrayed her. She swayed, her crown slipping, and before anyone could reach her, she collapsed onto the crystal floor. The hall froze in shock. Gasps filled the chamber. Nobles rose in panic. Guards rushed forward, and advisors shouted for healers. The queen, the heart of Rayana, lay trembling, her hands clutching her chest. Her eyes filled with tears, not only of pain but of helplessness. For the first time, her people saw their ruler cry. Aaron stepped forward, but before he could reach her, the princess moved. Her silence shattered. The princess speaks enough. The word rang through the chamber like thunder. Every noble, every guard, every servant turned at once. The princess, who had never spoken in public, whose silence had been law and mystery, now stood tall with fire in her eyes. Her voice was steady, sharp, and filled with power. Do not waste time with fear. This sickness is not new. I have studied it. I know its signs. I know its cause. The hall erupted with whispers. Many could not believe what they had heard. The princess had spoken, and not just spoken, but claimed knowledge greater than the healers. One noble rose, his robe shining with silver thread. You dare speak of forbidden studies. You break the silence placed upon you. The heir of Rayana cannot. The princess cut him off with a glare. The heir of Rayana cannot remain silent while her people suffer. You would let tradition blind you while lives are lost. I will not. Her voice carried across the chamber, strong and certain. The people who had once whispered about her silence now trembled at the force of her words. Aaron watched in awe. The mystery of her silence was broken, and before him stood not a hidden shadow but a leader ready to rise. Knowledge in chains. The princess stepped forward, her robe flowing behind her. This illness comes from the crystals themselves. They grow weak when overdrawn, and the sickness spreads to those who live close. I warned the court years ago, but they forbade me from speaking. They feared truth more than danger. The queen, still weak on the floor, reached for her daughter's hand. Her voice was faint but filled with sorrow. Forgive me, child. I silenced you to protect you. The council feared your mind, feared your knowledge. I thought silence would keep you safe. Tears filled the princess's eyes, but her voice did not break. Your silence has brought only more suffering. No more. The court erupted again. Some nobles demanded she stop. Others begged her to explain. The advisors argued about tradition, about law, about the place of the heir. But above them all stood her voice, firm and clear. Aaron could no longer remain still. He stepped beside her, facing the court. She speaks the truth. I have seen the crystals dim and break. On earth, when we draw too much from our world, the land itself grows sick. This illness is no curse. It is the cost of careless use. Some nobles shouted at him. You are an outsider. You bring dangerous words. But others listened. They saw the queen weak, the princess strong, and the human standing with her. Seeds of change had been planted. Defiance in the hall. The head advisor, an elder with robes of gold, stood and raised his staff. This cannot be allowed. The heir has broken the vow of silence. She has defied the queen's order. Her words are dangerous. If we follow her path, we will tear our traditions apart. The princess lifted her chin. Then let them tear. What use are traditions if they kill our people? What use is silence if it buries truth? The hall shook with voices, but for the first time, Aaron saw fear in the eyes of the nobles. Not fear of the illness, but fear of change. He stepped forward, his voice calm but strong. On Earth, we learned that change is not weakness. Change is survival. If you cling to silence, your people will fade. If you listen, you will find life again. The princess looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. For the first time, she was not alone in her defiance. The queen's tears as the voices clashed, the queen pulled herself upright with the help of her guards. She looked at her daughter, then at the court. Her face was pale, her strength fading, but her eyes burned with sorrow. I see now, she said, her voice trembling. I see what I have done. I silenced my own child. I silenced the future of Rayana. And now my people suffer for it. Her tears fell openly, the crystal floor catching the drops of light. The queen of Rayana, who had never shown weakness, wept before her people. The court fell silent. No one dared speak. The princess knelt beside her mother, her voice soft but clear. It is not too late, mother. We can still act. We can still save them. The queen touched her daughter's hand. Then speak, child. Speak, and let your voice guide us. A turning point. The silence of the court broke, not with argument but with listening. For the first time, the nobles waited for the princess's words. She stood tall, her eyes blazing. We must stop draining the crystals. We must heal them, let them grow again. The sickness will fade when balance is restored. I have studied the ways to mend them, to weave their energy back together. With the help of this human and his knowledge, we can succeed. Aaron nodded. Together, we can find a way. Your people's wisdom and human craft can work as one. Some nobles still looked uncertain, but others bowed their heads in agreement. The first cracks in tradition had appeared, and through them shone light. The queen, still weak, raised her hand. Hear her words. Hear the voice I tried to hide. The heir of Rayana speaks truth. Follow her, for she is the future. The chamber filled with murmurs, but no one dared argue further. The moment had passed. The silence that had bound the princess for years was broken forever. The princess transformed from that day. The city no longer saw the princess as a shadow. She walked openly among the people, her head high, her eyes steady. She gave orders to healers and engineers, speaking without fear. Her silence had once made her a mystery, but her voice now made her a beacon. Aaron walked beside her, helping to guide the work. Together, they examined the crystals, studying the energy, testing new ways to restore balance. Each step was met with resistance from some nobles, but more and more of the people believed. The queen watched from her throne, her body frail but her heart lighter. She had seen her daughter's strength and the courage of the human who stood by her side. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope. But Aaron knew this was only the beginning. The sickness still spread, the crystals still weakened, and the work ahead would be hard. Yet something had changed forever. The princess had broken her silence. The queen had shown her tears. And the people of Rayana had witnessed a moment that would mark the end of old traditions and the birth of something new. Aaron felt it deep within him, the breaking point had passed. Now the true struggle would begin. The day after the queen collapsed, the palace no longer felt the same. The air was heavy with fear, but also filled with something new. For the first time in memory, the voice of the princess had echoed through the halls. The silence that once surrounded her was broken, and her words now carried into every corner of the city. In the streets, the people spoke in hushed tones. Some said the princess was blessed, others said she had betrayed ancient tradition. But none could deny that when she spoke, her voice was filled with truth and strength. Aaron walked through the palace garden, thinking about what had happened. He had seen rulers across many worlds, but few had the courage to defy their own laws for the sake of their people. The princess had shown courage not only in words but in spirit. And now the city looked to her as it once looked to the queen. The first step in the great hall, the queen rested on her throne, weak but alert. The princess stood before the council, her posture straight, her eyes burning with determination. Aaron stood beside her, the only human in the chamber, but no longer an outsider. "We cannot wait any longer," the princess said. "The sickness spreads through the districts. The crystals weaken because we have taken too much from them. We must act now." A noble with golden robes raised his hand. "You speak boldly, but the cure you suggest is untested. If we stop drawing energy, our city will fall into darkness. Our defenses will fail. The people will panic." The princess turned her gaze on him. "Better darkness for a season than death without end. If we heal the crystals, the light will return stronger. If we do nothing, the sickness will swallow us." The court murmured, torn between fear and belief. Then Aaron stepped forward. His voice was calm, but it carried strength. "On Earth, we learn to live with risk. We learn that when a fire spreads, you do not debate tradition. You fight the fire. Your sickness is that fire. If you let it burn unchecked, no law will save you. But if you act, if you change, you will survive." His words hung in the hall. Some nobles lowered their eyes, ashamed. Others clenched their fists, resisting. But the queen raised her weak hand. "My daughter speaks with wisdom," she said softly. "And this human speaks with courage. You will listen. The work begins now." Learning together in the days that followed, the princess and Aaron worked side by side. They studied the crystals that powered the city, their light dim and their pulses weak. The healers of Rayana used their old methods, chanting and placing sacred stones, but the crystals responded little. Aaron brought his tools, strange metal devices that measured energy flow and heat. At first, the healers resisted. "You cannot place metal upon sacred crystal," they argued. But the princess silenced them. "Knowledge is no enemy," she said. "If his tools bring answers, then we must use them." Slowly, with patience, Aaron showed the healers how to see the crystals differently. He explained how energy could flow in patterns, how too much force could shatter the balance, how careful release could restore strength. He never claimed to know more than them. Instead, he asked questions, guiding them to see with new eyes. The healers began to listen. Some even began to use his tools, writing down their results with careful hands. The palace workshops filled with the sound of human science and alien tradition blending into one. The princess learned quickly. She asked questions that even Aaron struggled to answer. She moved with a confidence that inspired those around her. And though she had been silent for years, her voice never wavered now. Each word carried command, each order carried hope. Opposition grows, yet not all were pleased. A group of nobles met in secret chambers, their faces shadowed by doubt. "The air has broken our silence," one said. "She listens to the human more than to us. Soon she will tear apart all that we have guarded." Another clenched his fist. "If we give in to change, our traditions will die. The people will forget who we are." "But the sickness spreads," a younger noble whispered. "If we do nothing, the people will die anyway." The room fell silent. Even in their anger, they could not deny the truth. Yet they swore to watch closely, to resist when they could. The humans' lesson one evening, after a long day of work, Aaron stood with the princess in the garden. The sky was filled with twin moons, casting silver light across the crystal trees. "You carry a heavy burden," Aaron said quietly. "You speak for your people, but you also fight against them." The princess looked at the water flowing through the garden. "All my life, I was told silence was my duty. That my voice would bring harm. I obeyed. I waited. But silence did not protect us. It only hid the truth. Now, I must never be silent again." Aaron nodded. "On Earth, we learn that truth is like water. You can try to block it, but it always finds a way to flow. Your courage opened the path." She turned to him, her eyes steady. "And you, human? You risked much by standing with me in the hall. You could have stayed silent, yet you chose to speak." Aaron smiled faintly. "Because silence in the face of suffering is not an option. My people survived by speaking, by acting, even when fear was great. If I had stayed silent, I would not be human." The princess's gaze softened. "Then together, we will not be silent." Healing the crystals. Their plan began in the northern district, where the crystals glowed weakest. With the help of healers and engineers, they built a great circle of energy channels. Aaron placed his tools to measure the flow, while the princess guided the healers in chants that balanced the power. At first, nothing happened. The crystal pulsed faintly, then dimmed again. Doubt spread among the workers. But the princess raised her hand. "Do not stop. Balance is not found in haste." Aaron adjusted the flow, slowing it, guiding the power back into the crystal instead of drawing it out. The healers added their strength, weaving light into the cracks. Slowly, the crystal began to brighten. Its pulse grew steady. Cheers rose from the crowd. Children laughed, the sick felt warmth return to their bodies, and the people saw hope for the first time in many cycles. Word spread quickly. More districts asked for help, and soon teams of healers and workers followed the method of the human and the princess. Together, they restored crystal after crystal, and with each one healed, the sickness weakened. The bond of trust as days turned to weeks. Aaron and the princess grew closer in spirit. They spoke often, not only of work but of dreams. She told him of her childhood, of the silence forced upon her, of the fear she carried each day. He told her of Earth, of cities filled with light, of mistakes that turned into lessons. The people saw them together and began to believe more deeply. They no longer saw the human as a stranger. They saw him as a friend who had brought courage to their heir. The nobles who resisted could not stop the change. The city itself was proof. Where crystals were healed, sickness faded. Where sickness faded, hope grew. A fragile victory one evening, the queen called them to her chamber. She was weaker now, her breath shallow, but her eyes shone with pride. "You have done what I could not," she said. "You gave voice to truth, and you gave strength to action. My daughter, you are ready to lead. And you, Aaron of Earth, you have shown us that courage is not bound by blood or world." The princess knelt by her mother's side. "Rest now, mother. The burden will not be yours alone any longer." The queen touched her daughter's face, tears in her eyes. "I am proud. So proud." Aaron stood silently, feeling the weight of the moment. This was more than healing crystals. This was the birth of new leadership, new unity. Humanity had given something far greater than machines. It had given courage. Preparing for what comes, yet Aaron knew the struggle was not over. The sickness was fading, but the balance of power was shifting. The nobles who feared change would not stay silent forever. The traditions of centuries would not break without resistance. He looked at the princess, who now stood tall and unafraid, her voice steady as she gave orders to her people. He knew she was strong, but he also knew she would need allies, guidance, and unyielding resolve. In that moment, Aaron made a silent vow. He would stand by her side until her people were safe. He would lend human strength, human courage, and human resolve. For this was not only her fight. It was theirs together. And in his heart, he felt certain that the future of Rayana was no longer uncertain. The princess had broken her silence, and humanity had shown its worth. Now, the city of Rayana had changed. The glow of its crystal towers was brighter than it had been in cycles. Streets were alive with energy, laughter, and hope. Where once fear had spread like shadow, now light flowed freely through the people's hearts. At the center of this transformation stood the princess. No longer a silent figure, she moved through the city with her head high, her voice strong, guiding her people with wisdom and courage. Her presence was both calming and commanding. Wherever she went, people listened, not out of fear, but because they believed in her. Aaron walked beside her through the grand palace gates. For weeks, they had worked tirelessly, healing crystals, guiding engineers, teaching healers, and encouraging the people. Together, they had faced fear, resistance, and sickness. And together, they had triumphed. Recognition and respect. The queen, now fully recovered, called a gathering of the court. Nobles, healers, and citizens filled the great hall. Light poured through the crystal windows, illuminating the faces of those who had lived through fear and despair. "My daughter," the queen said, her voice firm yet filled with warmth, "has shown courage beyond what I could have imagined. She spoke when silence would have been easier. She acted when hesitation could have been safe. And she has saved our people." The hall erupted in applause. The princess bowed respectfully to her mother, then raised her head. "Mother," she said, "your guidance has always been my strength. But the time for silence is over. We must act together, with courage and with care, to ensure our people thrive." Aaron felt a warmth in his chest. He had seen rulers before, but rarely one who combined wisdom, courage, and compassion in such measure. This princess had grown from a mystery into a leader. The people cheered, not only for the princess but for themselves, for the hope that had returned to their city. A new understanding. After the ceremony, Aaron and the princess walked to the northern district, where the first crystals had been healed. Children played near the restored energy nodes, their laughter like music in the air. Healers demonstrated their new methods to others, teaching the careful balance of energy and life. This is the future, the princess said, her eyes bright. Not one ruler alone, but a people who understand and care for their own world. Humans taught us courage, but we must continue the work ourselves. Aaron nodded. Humans have always survived by learning, adapting, and helping one another. That is what makes you strong, not just your power, but your choices. Your people will carry this knowledge forward. The princess looked out over the city, feeling the pulse of life returning. She had been silent for so long, yet in that silence, she had grown stronger, wiser, and ready to lead. Now her voice was not just a sound, but a force that could shape the future. Trust and partnership over the next cycles, Aaron and the princess worked together to restore every district. The humans' methods blended with alien tradition to create solutions that neither could have achieved alone. Where crystals had weakened, they were now strong and balanced. Where sickness had spread, healing returned. Even the nobles who had opposed them could not deny the results. Some were slow to change, clinging to old ways, but they witnessed the courage and wisdom in the actions of the princess and Aaron. Gradually, trust began to replace fear. One evening, Aaron asked the princess to walk with him along the river. The water flowed calmly, reflecting the twin moons above. "You have changed more than the city," he said. "You have changed your people, their hearts, and their minds. They follow not because they must, but because they believe." The princess smiled faintly. "And you have changed me. I had strength, but I did not know how to use it. You taught me to act, to trust my voice, and to stand for what is right. For that, I am grateful." Aaron looked at her quietly. "You already had the courage. I only helped you see it." She looked at him, her eyes steady. "Then together, we will make sure that courage is never wasted again." Preparing for the future as weeks passed, the people of Rayana embraced their new understanding. Engineers shared their knowledge freely, healers worked together with human-inspired techniques, and children were taught the importance of balance and care for their crystals. The city had grown stronger, not because of one ruler, but because of a community united by courage and knowledge. The queen watched with pride. Her daughter, once silent, now guided her people with wisdom beyond her years. The human had brought more than tools, he had brought a perspective that allowed old knowledge to blend with new. The princess often met with Aaron in the evenings to plan for the future. They discussed ways to prevent sickness, methods to restore and balance the crystals, and how to teach the people to maintain harmony without fear. Their work was never done, but each day brought progress. A challenge overcome one day, the city faced a sudden tremor. The ground shook, and some crystals flickered in fear. Panic rose among the people. The nobles who had resisted change whispered among themselves, certain that disaster had come to prove their warnings. The princess acted immediately. She moved through the city with calm authority, directing healers, engineers, and citizens. Aaron followed, adjusting devices to stabilize the crystals and guiding the people through safety measures. Within hours, the tremor passed, and the crystals glowed steady once more. The people saw how courage, planning, and trust could overcome fear. The lesson was clear: the future was built not by fear, but by resolve and cooperation. The nobles who had opposed the princess now bowed their heads. They understood that change was not weakness, but strength. They recognized the wisdom in listening and acting together. Voices united. The princess called a meeting of the council. For the first time, everyone gathered not out of fear or obligation, but out of belief in the future. "We have faced sickness, darkness, and fear," she said. We have learned that silence can hide danger, and that courage can create hope. From now on, we will act together, humans and Ryanians, young and old, to protect our home and our people." The nobles, once hesitant, nodded. The healers and engineers bowed their heads. Even the children who had grown up in fear now understood that they had a voice, and that voice could change the world. Aaron stood beside her, feeling the weight of the moment. This was the essence of humanity's gift: courage, cooperation, and the willingness to face challenges with an open heart. The city of light. The city shone brighter than ever. Crystals pulsed with steady light, streets thrived with life, and the laughter of children filled the air. The people had learned that they were stronger than they realized, not because of magic or ancient tradition, but because of courage, knowledge, and unity. The princess walked among her people, listening, guiding, teaching. Her voice had become the voice of the future, a voice that inspired hope and action. Aaron followed, quietly ensuring that human knowledge and insight were shared, not imposed. Together, they created a world where fear no longer ruled, and courage could flourish. Even the queen, now fully restored, watched with pride. She had seen her daughter rise from mystery to leadership, and she understood that the future of Ryana was safe in her hands. A lasting partnership, as the twin suns said, casting golden light across the city. Aaron and the princess stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing towers. "You have done more than heal crystals," Aaron said. "You have healed hearts." The princess nodded. "And you have shown that courage and wisdom know no boundaries. You taught me that strength is not just in knowledge, but in action." Aaron smiled. "Then we have both done our part. The people will carry this forward. And Ryana will never be the same." She looked at him with a soft smile. "No, it will not. And we will face the future together, human and Ryanian, side by side." The city glowed beneath them, alive with energy and life. The sickness was gone, the crystals shone bright, and the people thrived. The princess had found her voice, and with it, she had guided her world toward a future built on courage, cooperation, and hope. Aaron knew that this was the true meaning of HFY. Humanity had not conquered, nor ruled, but had inspired. They had given courage, reason, and partnership. And in return, the people of Ryana had learned that the strength to change the world lies within every heart, waiting for the moment to rise. The princess turned, her eyes reflecting the light of the city. She was no longer a mystery. She was a leader, a voice of the future, and a symbol of hope. And Aaron, walking beside her, knew that together, they had created something that would last for generations.